Oh, you're a very nice man, hey? It's very nice. You should have a nap now. You look like you're quite ready for a nap. Ooh, look at those sleepy eyes. That's okay, my boy. You can have a quick nap. Hey? Look, this is how you do it. You go like this. You go like that. Oh, that's much better. Ooh, that's perfect. Yes, that's the spot. Okay, so we're not actually here to talk about Nero and his nap. We're here to talk about Guild Wars 2. So last time I covered a couple of topics, but I realized afterwards that I didn't actually talk about everything, so I decided to make that part 1, and this is going to be part 2. I made a list right here on my screen about things that I was going to talk about, and I got a couple of questions in the previous one, and I thought that it'll be much easier and I suppose better if I just answer them in video form, because then everyone can see them, because everyone doesn't read the comments on the videos, so it makes more sense. I'll tell myself that, and it'll give me another reason to make a vlog style video. Perfect. So, instance in PvP, latency, the whole buy once instead of subscription based thing, and a couple of other things. I'm actually going to talk a lot about the cosmetics in the game because I'm really interested in that. Mostly because I'm living with her. She's not here, but I'm pointing at her computer pretending that she is. She is like extremely obsessed. Her name's Riot Panda. Well, that's not her real name. Her parents didn't call her that, but that's what... I don't call her that either, actually. That's what she's known as. So, she has a thing with achievements and, like, mini pets and stuff, like in WoW, for instance, and cosmetic stuff, like cool outfits to wear and all that kind of girly stuff, as you'd expect. And Guild Wars has a lot of that in it. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but let's start with, first, the latency, actually, the latency. So a lot of people asked because quite a few people actually got into the beta from South Africa, which is very interesting because I didn't expect that. I know that people like Blizzard actually do not send out very many opt-in or any type of invites actually to South Africans, and South Africans are actually excluded from a lot of their, let's say, promos and stuff like Scroll of Resurrection. You can't do that to and from South Africa, so that kind of sucks. But the latency in Guild Wars 2 was actually very, very nice, playable. Now, I'll tell you for reference, I get about 300 ms to a US WoW server, or 320 maybe, around there. And that's okay, that's quite playable for World of Warcraft. It's actually really good. That's what I'm getting right now to the beta servers for Mr. Pandaria. And sadly, we couldn't check what we got in the Guild Wars beta, but I will tell you that those were all actually American servers. Even if they said European, I think they're still hosted in the US. So we were probably getting around that amount of latency, and that would only change, obviously, if there's server lag or if someone downloads on the line or whatever, but you guys know how it works. So that amount of latency actually didn't feel too bad. Now, Guild Wars 1 and games like Aeon, those are two games that I feel didn't do the whole netcode and latency thing right. They used a system where if you were lagging, you'd rubber band. It's called rubber banding, so you'd run somewhere and then you'd shoot back to a previous position because it didn't record that because you had, say, some packet loss or whatever, so you were lagging during that time. Now, rubber banding in Aeon was really, really annoying, and PvP in Aeon was pointless if you had more than 300 ms. There was just no reason to actually even try PvP. So I played a bit of Aeon when it came out, when it first launched, and I absolutely enjoyed it till I stepped into the PvP, and then it was just... there was no point. It was just too terrible to try and play. Guild Wars 1 PvP was sort of the same, but for some reason we actually got slightly better latency, better MS to Guild Wars 1, and I think it handled it a little bit better, and because of the way that the game actually controlled with the point and click style instead of WASD, it sort of felt like it worked a tiny bit better. But Guild Wars 2 does it even better than those, and it uses sort of the same system as World of Warcraft, where you probably won't be rubber banding, and the latency doesn't feel that big. The main place where it'll come into play is if you're trying to aim with AoE skills or anything that targets the ground. Then if your opponent is running across the map here or across your screen here, then you'd have to aim where this finger is to be able to hit him with that thing. So it's a bit of thought has to go into your attacks and the way you play, but I'm assuming that people from faraway countries like South Africa sort of know that already, and it's not a big deal to them. So from my personal experience, I couldn't really tell exactly how good or bad it was. Silly cars. I couldn't tell exactly how good or bad it was because of the terrible, and I really do mean terrible, performance I was getting in the game. I should actually just mention that again. I wasn't really able to play properly during the last beta weekend. I was in it as press, so don't even bother commenting and saying you're not allowed talking about it because it's under NDA. I wasn't under the same NDA. I wasn't allowed talking about a few things. Those things were the cash shop and one or two other things. I'm not allowed talking about those, although they were actually in the game. And I didn't have those silly watermarks all over my screen. So, it's interesting. It is actually quite interesting because I wasn't the only person who had the performance problems. There were quite a few people. Funny enough, 4 of the 6 journalists or press people that got in from South Africa had the same problems as me. So only 2 of them were able to play properly and really enjoy themselves. I personally enjoyed myself immensely. I had the best time ever. It was one of my best gaming weekends in a long time. It's been a while since I was able to really sit down and just play a game for the fun of it and just have a good time. But at the same time, it wasn't a great time, or it wasn't the most amazing time because of the performance. Now, I was getting probably around 10 to 15 FPS in most areas. I got lucky sometimes when I looked at walls, turned my camera down to the ground, or went in a huge cave and stood in the furthest corner, like the furthest point away from the entrance, and I just stared at the wall. Then I got like pretty decent FPS, around 30 maybe. But given that it was performing that badly, I could obviously not record, and I couldn't really take part in any of the dev activities. A lot of the devs were on an event server, and they were sort of giving people guided tours of... Why is there hair in my mouth? Guided tours of the instances in the game, of the areas, saying like, hey, this is something you should see because this is something that'll really show off how the game works, or how this system works, or how that works, and I kind of missed out on that. I hope that the game, or that the next beta events are going to have the same stuff in, that we can still interact with the devs and do stuff with them, but I'm not sure they're going to, because as you all probably know by now, the next beta weekend is going to contain, or at least allow everyone in that pre-ordered the game, pre-purchased the game, not pre-ordered, pre-purchased. I think there's a difference. Now, that's actually going to be super crazy. I hope that the servers can handle it, that's the first thing, and I hope that it's not going to be unpleasant questing, because when I played now, this 2 weekends ago, whenever it was, I had terrible performance. The latency was okay, it was like a slideshow and everything, but there weren't too many people. Now, this is going to sort of move straight into my next topic that I wanted to talk about, and so that's the latency done, instance in. Now, a lot of people were asking, and they weren't sure how it worked, but Guild Wars 2 doesn't work exactly like Guild Wars 1 did. There are instanced areas. The areas are instanced. Okay, so if you're on one server, there's going to be more than one area sometimes. Probably at launch, okay? Now, the way it works is there's an overflow. So I didn't actually experience this very much, but at peak hours, like at 8 PM or 7 to 8 or whatever, when people generally game, I was actually put into, I started the game off, I did the little tutorial area, the loading screen came up, I went into the starter area basically, and then it said, oh, you've been put in the Queensland overflow. So then what it does is it puts you in the overflow, which is pretty much the same as the normal Queensland area, just there are way fewer people in there. But that won't be the case at launch, obviously, because the overflow will probably also be full. But there'll be a lot more servers to choose from, so you never know. You never know. That's another thing we're going to discuss sometime in the future, servers. I want to choose a server where we can get everyone on. I want to get everyone from the South African community on the same server. I want to get all you guys on the same server. Basically, I just want to choose a server, unless you guys are going to friends and stuff, that's totally cool as well. But I want to choose a server where I will officially be playing, and I'll play there. But the instancing isn't that noticeable. So under ideal circumstances, I'm assuming that their main area, that's not the overflow, is probably going to have much more space in it. So they probably won't have people going into the overflow as quickly as they did in the beta, because the beta servers are probably not as powerful or not as expensive, I don't know, not expensive, but not as powerful as they would be at launch. So that is the one part that you'll see instance in, and you'll obviously go into a different instance for different PvP matches, but all games work like that. Okay, so you queue up for PvP, and we'll talk about PvP in just a second, how the queuing and stuff works, but you'll queue up for PvP, you'll be teleported to wherever you're going to be fighting, and you'll be there. That's fine. You obviously have different sets of PvPs, so if you're playing something like, for instance, a Warsong Gulch in WoW, you're obviously not going to be in the same game as everyone else, but the world versus world versus world, or just world versus world, that is all in the same instance, because it would be pointless if that was in separate instances. How are you going to fight world versus world if you're in separate instances? That would be unfair. So, other than that, if you're going to, say, a cave, and this was something that I was so impressed by, you go into an underwater area, and there really are lots of underwater areas. A huge lake. There's a big lake. In Guild Wars 1, you'd be like, I'm going to have to walk around it. There's nothing for me there. But in Guild Wars 2, haha, that's where it changes. You can actually jump into the lake, swim straight across it, jump out the other side if you want to. But it's not just about swimming across it. That is where the levels come in that I spoke about last time. There are 3 different levels. So you've got ground level, the normal level, then there's one above where they have stuff like, I'm assuming there'll be like treetop areas. They have stuff like where you go on top of mountains and stuff, and I went on a couple of those. Little trails that you follow up and you find like secret cool stuff there. Secret vendors, little sort of quest things up there. Just interesting stuff. You can go exploring, and I absolutely loved that. That was my favorite part of the game, just experiencing it. Going around, checking stuff out, and having a good time. That's what I was doing. That was a good time to me. And I want to talk about that a little bit later as well, but when you go into a cave, then you go down, maybe you go down. Sometimes the caves are on the same level and then they go down later. But say you go into a big cave, then it doesn't load, there's no loading screen, it doesn't put you in a different instance, nothing like that. You just go into the cave, it suddenly gets dark, you're inside a cave. And I gotta say that those places felt very atmospheric because of that. The game kept that immersion factor. You know, you don't have to go through a loading screen to get to a cave. And that is, to me, very important. I think that's great. The only time that I had a loading screen, other than, say, when you fast travel, when you travel around using waypoints, there are waypoints around the maps, along with a bunch of other stuff, like scouts. There are scouts. They're these little looking glass or telescope things on the map. You go to the scout, then he'll tell you what's cracking. He'll tell you, like, okay, so there are a couple of events here, and these are those hot events. There are a couple of skill point challenges around here. You could go over there and you'd have a good chance at finding a dynamic event start, and you could go over there for this and this pack of elite mobs. You could go over there for this and this instance. Basically, they just tell you the area, and the nice thing is they actually have this little, it actually animates, so it scrolls around the map telling you where things are, and that's really cool. But I was actually talking about something else that I totally forgot about. The immersion factor is there, okay? And that's very important to me. I don't like really get into it or whatever, but I feel as if I can have a lot more fun if I can just run around, explore stuff, not have to wait at loading screens, just basically point in a direction and go that way, and that's nice. No instancing, no loading screens, nothing like that. You will obviously also go into instances when you go into instances, dungeons and stuff. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was PvP. Now, PvP is very interesting in Guild Wars. So the devs were actually explaining it to me on Vent when this weekend was happening. He's so handsome. He's too handsome. But they said that there were 3 different types of PvP. Now, I didn't quite understand at the time, but I actually think that the 3 types they meant was there's structured PvP, there's world versus world, or world versus world versus world, and then there are like miscellaneous PvP events, areas, places. Now we'll talk about that last one first. So miscellaneous being things like, for the World of Warcraft players out there, the Gurubashi Arena, the new Dark Moon Arena, things that you can go, places you can go where you'd get specific rewards for competing against other players, places where if you enter an area, then you'll just be flagged for PvP and you'll be able to do battle. Glorious battle, hopefully. I mean, that's obviously the goal, to do well in PvP. And that's actually a big thing that people don't understand about Guild Wars, where you talk about endgame and the leveling and all that stuff, but I'll talk about that after PvP. I can't believe I'm trying to structure this. I can't structure my vlogs, it's not going to happen. But that is That's the miscellaneous PvP. So there are little arenas, there are little areas you'd enter where you can fight people. And that's obviously all around the world. The entire world map has these everywhere. Maybe in the capital cities there are a couple of events that you can take part in. And then you've got structured PvP. Structured PvP is where you can join games. And this is nice. This is where it differs from stuff like World of Warcraft, I don't know, Aeon, Rift, any of those games. Star Wars, I don't know if Star Wars actually allows you to do this. I'm talking about the Old Republic, obviously. But how it differs is that you can actually browse a list of games, you can queue for a game and just join a random one, or you can join with friends against friends. Basically, you can basically organize a game. And to make it even better, they've got a tournament mode where they can have tournaments hosted on the servers with ease. It's built into the game. So they can have PvP tournaments where teams enter and they'll automatically be paired against the next person, say in the brackets or in the group play or whatever, and that's amazing. Having tournament modes in your game at launch already, like just waiting for it to become an esports, is really cool. So that's great. Okay, so that's structured PvP. You can join from a list of games. You can choose what map you want to play on. There are about 4 or 5, I think, 4 or 5 different maps. Each of them has different objectives. And if you're playing in PvP, then you could say, for instance, capture a flag. You could kill a big boss type NPC on the map to gain points to win. Say, for instance, you're just going for points. Then there could be 3 or 4 different ways to get those points. You can kill your opponents. You can capture a flag. Or you can kill this big NPC, which is like PvPvE, actually. So you'll have some PvE in your PvP, which is fun. Now, the last one is World versus World, or World versus World versus World. That's that big map that you might have seen a couple of times before, where there are these this like triangle of areas, and they all meet in the middle. And that's where you play servers against other servers. Now, that's large scale, hundreds of players against hundreds of players, and that's quite cool as well. I'm just hoping that they manage to optimize the game enough for it to actually work smoothly on most of our PCs. I think, from what I've seen so far, more players didn't slow my game down. As slow as it already was, it didn't get slower when there was a whole crowd of people around. So the problems that I had with performance, they no doubt going to be gone by the next beta event. Hopefully. I actually have faith in them because I spoke to a couple of the tech support guys personally, and they said to me that they're quite confident that they're gonna, work through it, and they got so much feedback and input from the people playing, and the people obviously gave serious feedback and input because they really wanted to play. So because they got all that information, they're probably gonna be able to fix it easily. But that said, big scale PvP, thumbs up from Lumen, definitely. So the way it works is when you enter PvP, you get sidekicked, and it's a funny word to use, but I think that's what they dubbed it. You get sidekicked up to level 80. Now, it works in a very interesting way. So what you can do is in the beta, you could click on Be in the Mists, then it sends you to the Mists for World versus World versus World. Now in the beta, we could actually buy all the gear we wanted. We could get maxed out PvP gear, and it was great. That's cool. But when you actually playing the game for yourself, then you will get gear equivalent to your opponents in structured PvP, but in World versus World, then I think, now I might be wrong here, so don't quote me on this, but because I didn't spend much time in PvP, but I did get the gist of it. And now I know one of them works with, you'll get the full gear, you get level 80 and all the skills that come with it, and I think that's in structured PvP. You get everything, you get decked out basically. But in World vs. World, now I might have them mixed up as I said, but in World vs. World, you have your own gear, you have your own skills, and you have your own weapons and stuff. Now the weapons, as I mentioned in the previous blog, if you haven't seen that, click up at the little previous button. I'm bad, it's probably on this side. But in World vs. World, you use your own weapons, which means you'll have your own skills that you had outside of World vs. World, but your stats will still be bumped up to 80. So, for instance, if you were looking at it in World of Warcraft terms, you'd have the same health and mana pool as your opponent, or health and whatever other resource you have there, and you'd have the same stats, so your strength, vitality, intellect, and all those things will be the same as all the other people there. And that's obviously based on class, but you'd have level 80 stats. You could still have worse gear, so that would be a bit of an advantage, but it's not huge. And I like that. That just means that PvP is going to be more competitive, and you're not going to have the problem of PvP ever being underpopulated. You're not going to have these different brackets that you have to play in. Now, I assume that you can maybe do the miscellaneous PvP, like the arenas and stuff, at your current level, but the other two you will get leveled up to 80 for that. And I like it. You can also just be in the mists, and that's interesting as well. You can go, you click on be in the mist, then it teleports you to this PvP hub of sorts, and you can see other players there, you can chat to them, there are a bunch of different portals to different areas, and that was cool. I liked that idea a lot. I thought that that it was a nice way to do it. It's not as impersonal as World of Warcraft, where you can queue from anywhere in the world, which you can do in Guild Wars 2, but in World of Warcraft they sort of don't really need you to be anywhere. There's no central gathering location for like your server's PvP crowd. And Guild Wars, they fixed that. They made the mists. And the world versus world thing actually all happens in the mists, which is nice. It's fun. So, that's it. That's most of the stuff I want to talk about, but there's more. It's not all of it. It's most of it. The other thing I want to talk about was progression. So, you can level up to the max level in the game just fine, and I'll just say that a lot of people have different views on how that should work. But Guild Wars does it in a unique way, where it uses the sidekicking system. So when you go to older or lower level areas, you'll get sidekicked or auto-balanced, that's a good way of explaining it, to the level of the area or maybe a level or two above it. Your gear will still be the same as you had, so if you're a level 80 character, you'll still have that level 80 gear, you'll still have your really cool gear, but you'll be a low level. So you'll be a low level with better stats, and that's great. But the way that the gear and stuff works, people that come from World of Warcraft and expect a hugely expansive end game, like 5 raids to choose from, 20 instances, you might be slightly disappointed coming into Guild Wars 2. Because the way Guild Wars 2 is going to work is that, let me just think how I can say this properly. So you're not going to have, there are actually no raids. The only raid in the game I think at the moment is this big outdoor dragon or something that attacks a coastal town every now and then. But there are no big raids like, for instance, World of Warcraft came out with Molten Core and Onyxia. There's nothing like that. There are a bunch of instances and dungeons, basically. Get out of here, low battery. There are a bunch of dungeons, and you can do the dungeons in story mode, where it'll be like a little story that you're going through. You'll see what happened in the dungeon. There'll be different characters that speak to you. There'll be cinematics and stuff like that. It'll basically be an experience to go through, but then you can do it in a whole different way, which is called explorable mode, and that is just your own, like, do it your own way type of thing, where you're actually free to go wherever you want in the instance, and they're not going to sort of stop you or tell you can't go there. You can just explore it at your own leisure, kill the bosses in whichever order you want, and it works in different ways. The explorable dungeons, say for instance, some of them will start and you'll be at the start of the dungeon, and then there'll be 3 or 4 different NPCs. Each of them will have a different strategy that they want to use in going through this dungeon. Say for instance there was a big boss at the end, and the one wants to go this way because he can use this and this different strat, and he can attack from this angle and do it in that way, and the other guy wants to go straight down the middle and he wants to just face the thing head on, and the other guy wants to go around the back and try and, take him from behind. And that's cool. So you go with them and you do it in different ways, but you still have a lot more freedom than you did in story mode. And then the gear progression and the stuff that you'll get nice loot drops from the bosses in the dungeons, but at the same time, the dungeons that you do in while you're leveling will be the same ones that you do when you max level, because it's not the same kind of gear grind that you have in World of Warcraft. You're not trying to get to a specific item level so you can do a specific or raid or dungeon or whatever. It's going to work differently, that most of the rewards, or a lot of the rewards, are going to be cosmetic. So you're going to be grinding to make yourself look cool. You're going to grind to get those amazing looking shoulder pads. You're going to grind for that really cool helmet. And you're going to be grinding basically to get bonuses, special things, vanity items, stuff that I feel, and I really do mean this, I feel they mean a lot more. They have more value than gear that you're going to replace a week or two later when you kill said boss in X dungeon or Y dungeon. And I like that. So people will sort of, I need to scratch my head. People will sort of get annoyed by the fact that they'll level to endgame and there won't be anything to do, but there is stuff to do. You can do all the content in the game with friends. You can queue up for, or you can go to instances, do that with other people. You can do those dungeons. You can, obviously the PvP is hugely expansive. There's a ton of focus on PvP. But when you get to end game, you've got the whole game that you can do. The thing is that people don't understand is that there's no reason in Guild Wars to rush. Sure, you can rush to see all the cool areas while you level in, but there's no reason to rush then. Why would you rush through leveling areas? The best thing I would say to do is take your time in every single area and enjoy it. Enjoy the areas for what they are, like amazing. They are really, really amazing and different from one another. Because the few areas that I saw in the beta were all incredibly different from one another. And I saw a couple of videos of the Sylvari starting area, and that looked, once again, way out there. Totally different from the human, Norn, or Char starting areas. And so you can take your time, and that means a lot to me. I think that I personally will play Guild Wars and just I will look at everything. I will go to every little nook and cranny of the map. I'll make sure I clear all the maps completely. I do all the events on them. Basically, I'll take my time and just enjoy the experience of going up in level. There's no reason to rush, because you can actually finish the tutorial and jump straight into level 80 PvP immediately. There's no delay. There's no long quest line to finish. There's no level requirement to be able to do it. So I think that's a really good way of making everyone happy, basically. So if you're a hardcore PvPer, you can just jump into the game and start enjoying PvP from, let's say, 10 minutes after you actually got in and created your character. And that's really cool. Now, cosmetic rewards in the game, I just had to actually look what I was really going to talk about here. Cosmetic rewards in the game can be various things. There are lots of different slots, accessory slots. Say, for instance, I think I made an engineer character in one of my character creation things where I had a backpack on my back. That was a cosmetic item. When you go into the game, you've got a bunch of slots. You've got your character paper doll, and then on the side you've got a bunch of cosmetic slots which will make you look different. Say, for instance, put a backpack on you, or a disgusting mesmer mask. Can you guys remember that thing? That was terrible. I don't know why they put that in the game. Anyway, okay. So you can do that, and I think that means a lot more. So you can look incredibly cool in PvP, you can look incredibly cool for your friends, you can go to the lower level areas and show off. The thing is, it works differently, and now all of this you're going to be getting for a once-off payment. Now sure, if you buy the collector's edition you're going to be paying more, but if you buy the standard edition online, there's no extra cost to it after you've bought the game. There might be a cash store when the game comes out where you can buy stuff, but they've already stressed the fact that they're not going to be allowing you to pay to win. You're going to maybe buy cosmetic stuff there. You'll buy a pet. You'll buy an extra couple of slots in your stash. You'll buy stuff like that, basically. And that's stuff that you definitely don't need to be better in PvP or PvE or any way you play. So I think that the system that they use for that is really good. And, when you actually play, and you can click on a little icon in your paper doll. I was going to sit down, but I don't think I should. Nah, let's not. Let's stand for a second. And there's that little, in your paper doll, you can click on a little button that says town clothes. And that'll put you in your town clothes, and that's just some clothes that you get to show off around town. So you don't want your gnarly looking spiky armor on in town. Just wear your fancy suit. Much better, much nicer. And that's obviously also stuff that you can work on. And the nice thing is that these kind of rewards obviously work for any level. So you get rewards at a low level, you'll probably still be using them at max level. Because why not? They're going to be cool enough to use then. And I'm spitting a lot. Maybe I need to drink something. Anyway, then that's actually pretty much it. That's all I was going to talk about. I'm super excited for Guild Wars and everything that's going to come with it. The experiences, the new friends I might make. I don't know, everything. I'm actually keen for doing all the instances, the dungeons. I'm definitely going to PvP a bit. I'm not sure how it's going to be with our latency, but as I said, I felt as if it was good enough to play with anything, let's say, below 300 ms. And I was playing on the US servers, so I'm sure EU will be better. But I'm super excited, and I'm definitely going to be getting myself the collector's edition. I mentioned that before. It might cost a lot, but the stuff that you get in there is just too cool to pass up. I said before, I'll save for an entire year if I have to. I will get the collector's edition. But that's pretty much it for my impressions of Guild Wars. And now these are first impressions. I might be wrong about a lot of stuff. I might have missed a couple of things. But I do feel like I got a good enough idea from the amount of time that I spent in there of how the game is going to be, how it's going to feel, and if it's basically worth my money or not. And honestly, I gotta say, it definitely is. It looks like a lot of fun. So, if you guys are excited for Guild Wars 2, you better go pre-order or pre-purchase it before April the 10th or 11th, I can't remember what the date was, because then you'll get into all the beta events coming up. There's probably, the rumors say, I don't know if the rumors can talk, but the rumor has it that the next beta event will be like the 20th or the 21st or whatever, that weekend, that's around there, but I'm not sure about that. I'm really not sure about that. So, lastly, I just want to say thank you to everyone that watched and liked and favorited and all that stuff. The celebrity character creation, I know it was bad. Okay, I know it was actually really terrible, because I think if I spent a lot more time on it, which I didn't, I was like trying to power through that at 4 a.m. in the morning on the Sunday before the beta was about to end. So I was kind of rushed. If I had more time, I probably could have made the characters look better, but it was just a bit of fun. Okay, so don't take it too seriously. Don't go and dislike or flame the video just because you think it doesn't look exactly like the celebrity. Keep in mind it's a game, okay? You're not supposed to make exact copies of people in games. That would be a little bit messed up. Although you can sort of sometimes do it in some games. But anyway, okay, that's the limit for this video. Check back here soon for more. I'm sorry that was a half an hour long again. I apologize. I know how you guys struggle with long videos sometimes. I know how I struggle with long videos sometimes. Anyway, check back here soon for more. Most importantly though. Oh, she's very cute. Happy having a nap with Nero Puppy. If you have a nap right now after this video, just pretend that you're having a nap next to Nero. Ooh, I just saw that over there. Have a look at this. Look at that. That's terrifying. Wow. That's an old school Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos poster, and I'm not sure where I'm going to put it up yet. Could you even see that with the glare on it? I'm not sure. Basically, it's got an orc, a night elf, an undead, and a human on it. I'm assuming that's actually Arthas, and I don't know who the others are, okay. That could be Hellscream or something, or is that maybe Thrall from Warcraft 3? I can't remember what they looked like. But anyway, there you go. It's actually laminated and everything already, so I'll probably put it up somewhere. Who knows? Who knows where it'll go? Ooh, and I'm going to be ordering the Book of Cain. I don't want to talk about this now. Book of Cain soon because I want the map. I'll vlog about this some other time. This is all dedicated to Guild Wars, and that's that. So, check back soon for more. Most importantly though, happy waiting for Guild Wars 2. Can you see the Guild Wars 2 icon there? Happy waiting for that.